Happy Wednesday. How is everybody? I'm doing super well. I'm excited to be here and back at the work. It's been a great day for me so far. Went to the gym, worked out, so I am ready to go. Today's topic is one that I've been putting off for, a couple of minutes now, right? Good stuff keeps coming up that I felt like we need to talk about prior to actually getting to setting boundaries, which is full disclosure. Out of everything that I've talked about in here, setting boundaries is the thing I struggle with the most. It's the thing I analyze the most. It's the thing I try and define and understand in my life the most. But you can't do that part, right, if you haven't gone through the exercises of understanding what you internally stand for, right? Your core values. Again, we always keep heading back to that. What are your core values, right? And it's not so easy because you have to clearly define those, and you also have to understand the consequences of setting boundaries when you do it. Because there will be consequences if you set real boundaries. So that's something we need to decide up front in terms of what do we stand for in this world of 2022. What do we stand for? Where are our boundaries? Boundaries are tricky because they often get looped in with having a judgment, right? Don't believe that for yourself, okay? What we're doing in here is creating a safe space, a safe environment for you to live in and feel protected and feel safe, especially for the queer community who has no safe place for the most part, right? I mean, you think I'm going to hold my husband's hand in any of the red states? Are you under the impression that we live in an America where that wouldn't seriously call into question my personal safety and the safety of my family? And I'm not going to endanger our lives to hold hands. And so all of you who are living in red states and voting along red political lines, you're not creating a safe environment for me and my family. Do you at all understand that or hold a responsibility for that? Right? So, where do we begin with setting boundaries between us and others, right? So like I said, it's first of all understanding truly your core values, but then what do you do with that, right? My core values are that I live in service to the divine feminine, right? And love. But that shows up for me probably different than you, because what is love for me might be, internally prescribed by me, for me, differently than you, right? Again, it goes back to, if your core values are being prescribed to you by an organization or by others, and you swallow that and then you don't feel good, well, look no further, right? That's what's making you unhappy. It's why, the majority of my Christian relatives are the most unhappy people I've ever met, right? Because they live in a community and a society of rules and judgment and dogma that's been prescribed to them, much of which doesn't actually fit them well. And I know it's super shocking, like when I said not too long ago that I don't have a lot of respect for people who go and join communities of faith. I want to elaborate on that just a second, okay? Because one of my core values is that I understand the energy signature behind the Christianity that has been presented to me in my life. And again, this is not a takedown of Christianity. This is just me showing my boundaries and how that's worked for me in my life in order to, protect myself and create a more safe and loving environment for my family, right? And to understand where my personal boundaries are, right? So when I clearly understand and get and see what is Christianity in terms of what's been served to me, I know that for me, if you tell me that you belong to a community of faith, my first reaction is not going to be, oh, great. No, never. My reaction is going to be this, right? I'm going to protect my heart, and then I'm going to put my hand out to create a stopgap between me and you until I understand what you're all about, because I understand what the Christianity is all about that I've been served. And so I need to know if you're on board with that version of Christianity, or if you have a more slightly evolved version somewhere in your back pocket that you managed to find somewhere. Right? And I hope you have. But again, I don't have a lot of respect for people who just follow, the person in front of them, usually their parents, into a set of core values without ever taking it out and analyzing it to see if it's actually good for you or not. Like, there's no critical thinking there in terms of adopting your set of core values. And so if you do that and you just follow the person in front of you, and sign up for what they got going on, it's not so much the way, the truth, and the life as more like literally the only thing you know, right? Like, so when I find out that somebody is a Christian, right? Because I know what that usually involves a very toxic environment of heteronormativity, which excludes me and my family, right? So I'm going to stop right there. When I find out someone belongs to a community of faith, my first question is going to be, what is their policy on gay people? Directly. And I don't think a lot of Christians are ready for that, as far as being taken on just for being Christian, right? Because there's never been any repercussion for that life decision, right? There's just been all applause, right? All around, you know what I mean? And I think that some people, if they want to adopt the same thing as me, might live in service to a better world that points out how toxic their, faith community is. But they've never been asked or challenged, right? And so it's really funny when they're like, what? I mean, you can't, what? They're so confused. It's so funny. Right? So, again, in order for me to understand if you're a person worthy of my time and my trust, I need to know a little bit more information. What is your faith's attitude towards gay people? And I'm not saying you personally, because I don't care about what you personally believe until I understand the, type of environment that you're living your life in service to. Because those two things are inextricable, right? Despite what the majority of people who belong to bigoted faiths will tell you. They're like, oh no, I can belong to the Catholic Church, but I'm still a good person. I'm doing good in the world, right? Please, stop doing that. At some point, there needs to be some responsibility for the bigotry that you're funding and bringing into the world. You're not a good person if you're doing that. I'm sorry. That's not what good people do. Good people don't belong to bigoted organizations. Full stop. Right? So I need to know, if you're a Christian, what institution do you subscribe to and fund? Is it openly harmful against your fellow humans? If it is, I'm not interested. Right? I'm not interested at all. Okay? But let's say that they belong to some evangelical, whatever, mom and pop's, church down the way. Okay. That's your Jesus group. Never heard of it, don't know anything about it, right? So they don't necessarily belong to an institutionalized bigotry that I understand or have information about, right? So then my next question is going to be, is that the church that your parents belong to? Again, I'm trying to understand if this person has the ability to think critically about their core values and how they arrived at being who they are today. Right? So, is that church the church of your parents? Did you just follow the person ahead of you into that religion? Or was there a process of you going out and trying out a bunch of different ones? Oh, I'll be, Buddhist for 6 months. Check that out, right? I will go and check out shamanism. I will go and check out, Islam. I will go and check out the Baptist church. I will go and check out the Catholic church. And you just kind of shop around, because if you're willing to do that for your car insurance, but not your set of core values in terms of like how you're actually, functioning in the world, like, again, no thank you. If you have done no work in trying to establish a set of core values for yourself, right, I need to know that there's some critical thinking there, right? Because that's the genesis of a really interesting conversation. Even if you do land on being one of the more, belonging to and funding one of the more bigoted religions, that's at least a person I'd want to have a conversation with. Because again, there's a brain there that's functioning, right? They're just not following the person in front of them into this la-la land of non-critical thinking, right? Which, let's be honest, Christianity is not really known for its critical thinking. But anyhow, really? That's what you believe? Like, oh, interesting. Okay. Because that's the next thing I need to know. Right? Are you someone who thinks about what you're doing from a thoughtful place, or are you just showing up and doing what everybody else is doing? Because that's how institutionalized bigotry and hate continues generationally. Correct me if I'm saying something untrue. All right? That's how this environment of horrifically toxic heteronormativity continues. Churches weren't speaking ill of gay people until 1946, when y'all did your latest update of the Bible and included some homophobic, stuff in there. Oh, you don't know about that? 1946? When they started adding anti-gay things into the Bible? Y'all say it's the Word of God, but there's been a few man-made updates since then. Check your history, right? And so I need to know that there's a person there that I'm communicating with who thinks along those lines, right? Because the Bible really needs another update. That's why I don't have a lot of faith that, Christianity will properly evolve. Mormonism, I actually have more faith that they will evolve properly. Why is that? Because the Mormons have a living prophet, which is a, person who speaks directly for God, for their religion here on earth. Right? And then when they get too old, they elect another one, and he's the mouthpiece for... Oh, it's like how they started to admit black people, right? In the 70s, the head of the church had this revelation. All of a sudden, 1970, gosh, the timing of that seems really on the nose. Convenient, right? Convenient, because they themselves, like most communities of faith, are not leading on human rights and civil liberties for their fellow humans, especially if they're different than them. They don't lead on those subjects. They drag their feet. They're the last ones to get on the love bus. The last ones, not the first ones. So I have a really hard time when people have some expectation that I'm going to think or speak well of these organizations when they literally have vilified gay people since the dawn of time. Right? Communities of faith have been a nightmare for minorities in this country. Prove me wrong. Show me where faith communities have led on civil rights of any kind, literally of any kind. Show me where they've led. On racial equality, on gay rights, on anything to do with somebody that's different than them. They don't lead from that place. They lead from good and bad and right and wrong and judgment, right? The organizations that hold that as first and foremost of this is the way it should be, right? White supremacy, they do that. Churches, they do that, right? Neo-Nazis, they do that. All these groups, these big groups that lead from judgment, not from love. all three of them are in the Republican Party. That is the base, right? All the people who don't like gay people, who rally against gay people, they're all on the Republican Party side. I mean, of course, I'm speaking, grossly in general terms, but you get my point, right? Those people are not interested in leading from love. They lead from judgment, right? And if love is defined as the absence of judgment, those people are not loving. And so for me, my core values and how that shows up, I need to, with the weapon of empathy, clarify to those groups and to you how this is functioning and how this is going down, right? Again, tell me if I'm saying anything untrue here. And until there's faith communities leading on those subjects that I can actively see and not in name only, I'm talking about leadership from the Vatican, right? Leadership from the top of the Mormon Church, from the evangelicals, from that, what's his name? Billy Franklin or whatever. Anyways, I used to work for his dad, a little aside, for Billy Graham. I worked for Billy Graham in Vancouver, British Columbia. And I was considered one of the runners. And what they would do for this is they'd pack the BC Place, which is a big stadium downtown. And they'd pack it with a bunch of Christians and almost Christians and whomever else, wanted to be on board the, Billy Graham show. So they do that, and then they'd have us kids, and after they would do their whole sermon and whatever else, they would have these, people who would come around and lay their hands on people who wanted to convert to, their Christian beliefs. And then the people who were converting the people would fill out cards and get their info, right? And then they'd raise this card, and I would run around the stadium and collect the cards, and that was my job, right? And so I know a little of what I speak. Okay, having been in that world, having been raised in a Baptist family by a Baptist minister, okay, I am familiar with the toxic environment that does not include, it's so much actually more punitive than just doesn't include, right? It's not just doesn't include, but actively seeks to harm people who are different than them, right? I know that world a little too intimately, and because of that, my personal boundary is no people of faith communities unless you can answer a couple of questions. I just need to know what I'm dealing with, right? Do you belong to a community that openly seeks to harm your fellow humans? That's the first question. The second one is this faith from your parents? Or did you, through a process of discovery, find this community? If so, why? Tell me why. Sell me on it. Tell me what's there that you're seeing, that you're excited about. I'm more than open to that conversation. In fact, I'm quite curious, genuinely, especially, if you're a gay person or a woman. What? Really? It's always super confusing because most communities of faith are openly misogynistic, right? And homophobic. Again, there's no love there that I have seen, but change my mind. Oh, it's like that guy, that meme where he's sitting at the table. And it says, something political or whatever, and it says, change my mind. I guess I'm that guy, right? Because I want to remain in curiosity. I don't want to jump to judgment. I want to find out more. But I also need to find out more so that I can understand whether you're a safe person for me. Because as soon as I find out that you belong to a community of faith and I do this number, right? Protect my heart, keep you away, until I find out more. That's a huge red flag for me. That people would go and join organizations that seek to harm their fellow humans. I'm not interested in bringing that into my life, right? Even the ones who kind of just hang out and do the thing, right? passive consent is still consent. And you do not, in 2022, get to belong to organizations that seek to harm others and just get away from that scot-free, at least in my world. Like, you'll be challenged on that every time. Right, especially on social media and things like that. People post the, some Jesus thing. Like, that's an instant, I'm going for you. I'm going for the jugular. I need to know more. I need to know more in order to understand who you are, what you're about, and whether you're a safe person for me. That's my boundaries, because that's my damage, right? And so I'm trying to create a, little love bus for myself that I can journey through the world in and see who can get on board with me. That's going to be a safe future for me. Because what I'm not going to do is spend my, New Year's or any other, holiday with a house full of casual bigots. Those people aren't in my world. If you just so casually join up for organizations that seek to harm others, no way. And a faith community is the biggest red flag for me. Okay, I need to know what you're about, how you arrived at the decision that this group was going to form your core values. Because if you haven't done any work around that, again, you're just not, someone that I'm super interested in talking with, because you're not thinking critically. There's no discovery there, right? And until churches and other faith communities that have a horrific past between their racism, their misogyny, and homophobia, we got the receipts. These are not good people. They have never led from a loving place. And that's their leaders, right? I actually don't think it's the religion itself. It's just what it's gotten itself twisted into. When did that happen? I know it started in 1946, when they rewrote the Bible to include more homophobic language. Prove me wrong. Which didn't exist prior to that. But, until there's some canonized, Saint RuPaul that the Vatican is applauding and lifting up as a non-binary person, until they start seeing value in not male or female, but somewhere in the middle, right? Because this heteronormativity that they got going is so toxic to people like us who just can't see ourselves being included anywhere in their world. In fact, it's worse than that. It'd be one thing if they just ignored us and we didn't see ourselves in their world. But when we do see ourselves in their world, we're painted as the villain, as the horrible person, and our marriages are either disgusting or too adult of a topic to bring children into. Because it's different, right? It's not just a regular loving relationship or a regular marriage. It's a gay marriage. That's an adult topic, not for children. That's what heteronormativity does, and its effects on people like me. When I can't have my niece and nephew come to my wedding because the expectation within their faith community is heteronormativity, and when it doesn't check that box, they don't know what to do, right? Because their leaders have twisted their minds into thinking that John and I are bad people, right? Certainly not normal, because if it was normal, we'd be straight. So they don't know what to do with us. And they have never taught their people who belong to the church to lead from love individually, at least not in my family. I know I'm overly generalizing. I can only speak from my experience. And I'm sure that there are lots of loving Christian families out there who have immediately embraced their gay kids. I've never seen it. I've never seen it from any of the queer people who write to me, who cry of how their families have just rejected them. That's normal in the gay culture, that we don't have families or parents. That's normal. It is normal that we don't have families of origin. And when we do have families of origin, it's cherry picked in terms of who we can actually have a relationship with, right? Like I was, denied the relationship with my grandparents because my mother didn't want me to be gay in front of them. Well, if I can't be gay in front of them, like I can't be straight in front of them, so I just can't be in front of them. So I was denied that relationship. And now they're gone. All of them. I don't have that option anymore. Right? So in the gay world, it is normal and expected that we don't have parents who care about us. We mostly don't have families. Maybe that's changing. I hope it is. But I still get letters from young people just coming out who are struggling to not kill themselves because they've been told that they're wrong or bad by their own families. It's horrific. So sad. I had a kind of unfortunate experience this last week over a friend who had left the Mormon church, and like we kind of hung out, and like I thought she was really cool, and we were having a really good friendship and things like this. But then she posts on Facebook that she's sending her son on a Mormon mission, right? And so he's got his little elder outfit on. He's ready to go be a Mormon missionary and convert the world to the most horrific institutionalized bigotry there is. Sure, why not? Because 12-year-old women, not women, girls, 12-year-old girls should be married off. Right? So she posts this, that she's sending her son on a Mormon mission. I need more information about this. Why? Why are you indoctrinating a child into institutionalized bigotry? I outright told her, and again, this is a reflection of my personal boundaries, that I clarify the weapon of the empaths, that I clarify to her that her position is no longer okay with me, right? That I am no longer interested in her casual bigotry, her funding of bigotry, her family standing up for and proselytizing bigotry. That's just my personal boundary, right? But that's the thing about boundaries, is they have real consequences, and you have to get okay with that. I know I have torched dozens and dozens and dozens of relationships, many whom could have helped me greatly right now in this predicament that I'm in. People with incredible contacts for, television production and other things like this because they are Christian, and they go against my personal boundary of, I need to understand what you're doing in the world. I need to know how you're showing up and representing institutionalized bigotry in the world. I need to understand that before you come anywhere near my world. And again, I understand that I am hurting myself in that by standing up for that, by having a space in the world where there is finally some retribution, some questions about what it is that they're doing, what it is that they're standing up for. I need to know, right? But that's my personal boundary. And I'm okay with the repercussion of torching those relationships to the ground because we have to start somewhere. And that's what I can do, is question people. Again, it doesn't have to be aggressive, although I often like it if it is. Right? It's just part of my charm. I am very direct, right? When I find out that people are starting to tap dance on that boundary for me, I am very direct because I need to know. Because again, I'm not going to have casual bigots in my life, even if it's just a passive consent, right? That's super dangerous to me. I don't allow that. So sure, I've torched a lot of relationships that could have really helped me right now. But I'm okay with that, right? So know that that's going to happen when you do start to take a different position or, a new position on things. It will affect your relationships and often end many of them. You have to be ready for that if that's what you want to do. And I'm not saying that you should be as aggressive as I am in these boundaries. I'm just saying that this is what I'm doing and this is an option in the world. Because I think that if people who belong to openly bigoted, faiths, every time they posted something on social media about that bigoted organization, they got a drive-by by somebody like me, clarifying and calling out what it is actually that they're living in service to, and clarifying what they themselves have on either their websites or what, but you have to be informed, right? So if these casual bigots, every time they post something about the Pope, get a drive-by every time, well, they're gonna suddenly go, oh, people they're not down with this because there's this whole bigotry part to it that maybe I've never really looked at seriously enough because these people seem really upset about it. Right? Because that's just my personal boundary, right? And I'm not saying adopt mine, I'm saying find your own. Because again, in spirituality, I will never give you a set of values, especially core values, for you to swallow and then deal with. What I'm going to be doing in here is challenging you to discover for yourself what is right, what is true, where is love. That's what I'm going to be asking. What is true for you? And I never veer away from that question. Because what is true for most people is love, right? Eventually, if you keep, kind of digging at the truth there, eventually you'll get down to the core of love, right? We all want the same thing. But at some point, again, there has to be repercussions for people belonging to and funding institutionalized bigotry in the world, because it's never happened before. So, if we started to get a little bit more vocal and a little bit more clarifying around what it is that our friends and family are actually contributing to and help educate them along those lines, and again, you don't have to be as hard-hearted as I am. You do not have to try and do this from, a place of intolerance. You can do it from your way, right? What kind of a clarifier are you? I'm an aggressive clarifier. I will get in your face. I will have no problem having that very direct conversation. And I will have no problem making you feel bad if you belong to and fund institutionalized bigotry against your fellow humans in the world. You should feel bad. You should feel terrible. You shouldn't be able to sleep at night if you are belonging to organizations that seek to harm others. No way. Not anymore. Right? So that was an unfortunate incident that happened with that woman, and I had to torch that relationship to the ground. I told her that her position might have been brave 20 years ago, but that in 2022 it is no longer acceptable in any way. And again, that's my personal boundary. It is not acceptable in 2022 in any way to contribute to this hateful nonsense. It's not hateful nonsense? Oh, you want to argue with me on that? Great, prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Show me where they are leading on love. The other unfortunate part of having this personal boundary that I have adopted that is very aggressive is that it often seems like I am attacking the people who have done the most work to get us to where we are. And I understand that, and I'm sorry about that, but that's just life. Okay? If you're an early adopter of equality and love for all your fellow humans, right? But then you kind of just stop there, right? And you're still doing the passive consent thing. I'm going to call it out because we have evolved a lot in the last 20 years. But if you're still doing what was brave 20 years ago today, I'm going to call you out on it. And yes, that'll probably be the people who have gotten us to this place. I understand that. The leaders within the Mormon church who have the most pro-LGBT, kind of mentality, unfortunately, are going to be the people that I first and foremost move the fence post back from, right? Because you got real comfortable there, right? But we're in a different era now, and you may not belong to or join or have anything to do with or fund those organizations of bigotry. Not in 2022. That's my personal boundary, and I will call you out on it if you go against that, right? Because I need to, right, clarify who you are, what you stand for. So, I have had a little bit of a shift in my understanding of what it is that I'm trying to do here. And trust me, I don't fully understand what I'm doing here. What am I doing? Am I preaching? Am I doing life lessons, life hacks, quilting, all the above, right? But what I am doing here, right, is a process of evolution, is a process of me coming in here and chasing what I call flow. Flow is something I know when I'm in it. Flow is a space that I felt when I was writing my books, right? Because there was this, this space where, again, in my mind, I could open up to the flow, right? And then the flow of energy would direct me in terms of where to go with the books and things like that. So flow and chasing flow is what I hope to do, what I want to live in service to. And it sucks that I have to try and monetize that in order to make a living, right? And trust me, I don't need to make a lot of money. But, you still got to pay your taxes and, do things like that. So I am constantly evolving and changing in pursuit of that. Yesterday for me was a very, 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 very tough day. Yesterday was one of those days where I just wanted to give up because it's hard. It's really hard. And I am struggling often with the reality of the situation versus, any preconceived ideas that I had coming in here of, me being able to build this channel a little more easily. Well, I've tapped out my immediate sphere of friends, and until I can get in on podcasts or anything like this or get my book published or it's tough for me to find a new group of people to be in front of in order to bring them on Team Dale. By the way, if you want a Team Dale button, just email me your mailing address and I will send you one for free, right? It's dale@daleallenrouse.com. Anyhow, I am in here learning myself. I will never take down my old videos, and I truly hope that in a very short amount of time, I go back and I look at those early videos and I hope that I'm horrified. I hope that I see how I've evolved and I'm embarrassed about who I was. Well, maybe not embarrassed, but I see where I was versus where I am now, right? And that requires constant evolution of self-critique, right? And understanding what it is that I'm truly bringing to the table. This is such a wonderful exercise for me because I really feel like it's challenging me. It's why I wanted to be a real estate coach and the director of education for Keller Williams. I took that position because I wanted to challenge myself to be the one at the front of the class that everybody else was looking to, because that would force me to know my stuff, right? No pressure, no diamonds. So I wanted to put myself in the most pressure-filled seat in the room, which is the one where everybody's looking to for answers. Sign me up. I want to be in that place. Same goes for here, right? And that requires constant evolution. I have discovered something in this last week that is a game changer for me. Because previously, when I've been speaking, it's been a little bit of this energy, right? Through this last process and taking a little break and reflecting with others about what it is that I'm doing here, right? I now understand that when I'm up here speaking, I need to be doing this. Being mindful, right, of you and your heart and where you are when we're in communication with this, because in shamanism, there is no time, there is no space. Right? So when I have the ability to be energetically with you, right? It is real time energetically with you, right? Even though I recorded this some time ago, there's no stop gap between me doing this right here, right now, and you watching this where you are. The energy can jump, okay? What we're always going to be doing in here is in service to love. And I will continue to chase that so that I can discover for myself the most loving attitudes to have towards people around these things. And it's a constant evolution. But I understand a new purpose for this, and that is in the care of you. Whereas before, I recognize now that I was taking care of myself, right? Getting my personal frustrations out and, doing things like that. Rah, rah, rah. So, I apologize for that. Again, I will always be in here learning and growing, right? And that's a big shift for me. A big shift. And I just wanted to, more than anything, say thank you to my friends who have been willing to get really honest with me about that. I really appreciate it. The greatest thing about this whole thing is when I first discovered it, and it's only been a few days since I started doing this, right? My energy shifts so completely in my entire body, right? The difference between standing and speaking like this versus speaking like this, right? That's a real shift for me. And it's funny because every time I do this and I take the attention away from myself and my troubles and I'm able to focus on others and their needs. It's interesting. I can feel my energy shift to the point where I light up. And I don't really know what that is, but I can feel the shift in me, right? The energy work that I'm sensitive to, shifting from here to here to take care of others, right? Because at the end of the day, that's ultimately what we're here to do, okay? So that's it from me today. I did want to show you this quilt. It's called Starbright Nights. I am going to be putting this one on my Etsy shop later today. Oh, so that will be available if you're at all in the market for a new quilt. Support an artist. Oh, and look, this one's coming along really well as well. This is the one I had up before. All right, so I'll probably have this one done this week. So they'll probably both be up there. That one will probably be 800. This one will be 600. Oh my God, this one's so difficult. If you don't have a couple $100 to pay on a quilt, you can get the patterns as well. They're on quiltingcowboy.com/shop is where the patterns are. If you want to make your own, have fun with that. Not easy. It's like when somebody had Picasso draw something on a napkin. And then he was like, oh, how much for the drawing? He was like, that'll be $30,000. And he said, but that just took you 5 minutes to draw. And he says, no, that took me a lifetime to draw. All right? So we'll talk to you next time. I hope that you're having a fabulous day. And don't forget to rock it out, baby. Oh, yeah. Talk to you next time. Bye.